Hey, what's going on? This is somewhat of a introduction, not as much of as a setup guide or a installation guide. This is more of a experience with QubesOs and kind of a rant on problems in the Linux space, more or less. Mainly, my main gripe with is with mainly blogs like top 10 Linux distros, or more geared towards telling people that QubesOS is an advanced Linux distro and unusable, or you wouldn't recommend it, and then they point to the top 10 Linux distros all the time. And this is somewhat, in my opinion, I think not as problematic, but more or less people taking in their experience and projecting it as what is considered user friendly, or what is not recommended. I think the only caveat that needs to be addressed with Qubes is, and I think this is somewhat well known if you just RTFM or just go on the internet, Qubes is not meant for gamers. If you're a gamer, hop off, go game, go do what you got to do. But if you're just like, I think the majority of average users looking for reasonably good security and somewhat better privacy to a certain degree, but that's not like the main focus. QubesOS is completely usable. I would rather hand QubesOS to somebody than hand Gen 2 or LFS or Arch. This is always demeaned as a non-beginner friendly Linux distro, but the thing is, first off, Qubes isn't a Linux distro, it's a hypervisor. It does the default settings is relatively what everyone could use. Like, it's the default settings are pretty much the most usable, and it walks you through like the installation process, and it has probably, in my opinion, literally the most documentation that I have ever come across with in the Linux space. I'm talking about very extensive documentation, all the way from general, system, service, debugging, build, release, operating system, advanced topics, troubles, like everything you could ask for, RTFM in the docs. That's what I like about QubesOS in general. Is they really thoroughly have thought about every use case. They even tell you what like certain aspects is considered advanced and to proceed with caution. But for average everyday Linux users that just use the majority of the time you're using a web application, I think it's completely usable and completely reasonable to use, especially if you're running a portable PC set, like if you have a laptop, which is on you at all the times. My experience when I first got into using Qubes is I essentially distro hopped on my laptop for a long time. I did Kali Linux, Parrot Linux as well, and then I ran also Fedora, Solus, and another elementary OS. Trying to find something that I'm going to carry around with me that's considered light. That's kind of funny now because I run Qubes, and helps me maintain a good, decent level of security and privacy. The context though is like I went from like light thinking to like a very heavy distro. I mean a very heavy operating system as a whole in general. Qubes is somewhat heavy. And I think my only problem that I'm running into is the battery life is not as good. I do have to bring my charger with me, carry a bank on me. It is running a lot of operations in the background, so that is something to be aware of. But it also, my laptop is relatively old. Introduction, pretty much, is what is QubesOS? I think it's pretty well known. If you don't know what it is, I mean, it's pretty much a free and open source security-oriented operating system for single-user desktop computing. It leverages a Zen-based virtualization to allow for creation and managing of isolated compartments. That is what I was told when I found it, is like what I got into essentially. This is what it does. It pretty much takes everything, gives you a level of trust, goes down right here, and it virtualizes everything from your USB to your sysnet, like your network, to your firewall, to your Unix. Unsafe, untrusted, these are automatically color-coded. Everything's color-coded. You say, and then it goes all the way from the safe and trusted ultimately. The GUI virtual display manager. There is ways you can get GPU processing done and acceleration, but you have to understand that it is not for gamers yet. I think there's a really well documented reason why they did not, where they go against the I guess like the NVIDIA, not the NVIDIA, the graphics card route. It's purely out of security. And you could go in their documentation and read their reason why. There's a really long thread that they point you to where you can read. Levels of trust from complete to non-existent. All windows are displayed in a unified desktop environment. I like this. The color coding is nice. For ADHD my brain, I literally enjoy that I have everything compartmentalized. Everything is compartmentalized. Everything is organized. I have all backups of my VMs if I ever decide to reinstall it or anything. It's very nice. I do a lot of web-based stuff when I'm on the go with my laptop anyway, so this is perfect for me. I don't have to install a bunch of applications, worry about unnecessary exploits or possibly data collection, etc., etc. But I have installed some apps for certain purposes. I do like that it runs KeyPass XD in a non-internet connected cube. There's no cube on it. There's no internet connection. It's completely sandboxed off, and that's what's good for me. I do have SyncThing installed to sync everything over to this between my password manager. You have disposable VMs. This is not a replacement for Tails or at all. There is reasoning behind it, so that's something to keep in mind. It does use Unix. Unix obviously is a way to be somewhat more private. It sandboxes off pretty much everything. So that's the point. Very strong isolation, multiple operating systems. This is what I'm talking about in the terms of people of saying Qubes is not user friendly. It literally guides. It gives you such a clean template to start with that you don't have to think about it. If you can have Fedora, Debian, or Windows. They have ways to make your own, bring your own virtual machines over, which is nice. You can create disposable VMs and then that self-destruct when you shut down. Unix integrated run Tor, seemingly secured system wide using the Unix with Qubes. CTAP proxy, which I am going to check out, which is to use your two-factor authentication devices without exposing your web browser to the full USB stack. Split PGP, I use this. If you like using your own PGP to encrypt your emails and decrypt them, this is a very, very awesome secure way to set it up. I fundamentally am retarded, and I didn't read the full docs, and I ran into an issue, and I realized with QubesOs, the biggest thing that you could take away from this is fucking read the docs. They almost walk you through it. You don't really have to watch a bunch of videos. But if you do run into a problem, their element chat, their matrix chat, they're very responsive over there. I ran into an issue. They gave me an answer. It worked. It was really, really awesome. I actually kind of like it. Physical isolation is a given, pretty much. Qubes allows you to compartmentalize your digital life. I like that. made to support vulnerable users and power users like whatever. They have video tours, screenshots, getting started. This is basically all you need to really understand. Then, when you actually need to do certain stuff, their documentation, like I said, is super, 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 super in-depth. They tell you how to do everything, how to install software in DOM 0, which you generally do not want to. DOM 0 is like daddy, like it's the dad and the mom inside your system. They have all the keys, the control. They do this. DOM 0, if DOM 0 gets exploited or compromised, your system's fucked. It has the most access. It's awesome, though. It's really nice. I rarely ever have to go into it besides through updating, etc. Management software, you can get into Salt if you're into that. Managing Cube kernels. You can get different desktop environments. This is something to also think about. I mean, it tells you, hey, this is for advanced users. That's the point. Now, my experience, more or less, has been great. I probably never intend to leave the Qubes ecosystem unless they do something that I fundamentally disagree with on a FOSS level, or if the project decides to go under and just not be maintained anymore. I doubt it. I think they've been around long enough and they really care about security. I genuinely like it. They have guides too. Hunix for privacy and anonymity. Running Tails in QubesOs. I've been told not to do this. Just use regular Tails. At all. That's all you got to do. You can get Signal, apparently. To work, you can reduce the fingerprinting of the text-based web browser in W3M. They have configuration guides. I really can't recommend them enough. You can even run QubesOS completely separate on a separate flash drive, like hard drive, SSD, an SSD preferably. The complete DOM 0 operating system separate from your machine to further the separation from the hardware. Is that more secure? I don't know. It's a good question. They definitely recommend core boot, like open source, and they definitely treat every environment with a grain of salt, obviously, that it is compromised or hostile, that you should not trust it. This is an approach that you should generally take. This is how I view. This is like the Graphene OS of operating systems. I have multiple user profiles. I have profiles that I give more trust to than others. I have ones that run VPNs on that I don't versus I do. And again, it's all about trust. You got to trust the not just the operating system. You got to trust the hardware, the microkernel, the code, everything down to a sane level of perspective. If you don't have a good quality secure system, then you're not it doesn't matter what OS you're running. Just like Graphene OS, it doesn't matter if you have the most hardened secured phone. If the hardware is insecure, then it's irrelevant. Obviously, this is going to go to threat modeling, your level of competence and level of care and trust at the end of the day, which I think is the most reasonable way. I don't feel like I've made a mistake by switching over to QubesOS full time. Everything that I've done has been obtainable either through not really well documentation, the use of progressive web apps or web apps in general. I don't need to game on my laptop on the go. I could just, I don't really game on my laptop, to be honest. I just game on my regular PC. That's what I built it for, and that's what it works for me. Now, obviously, everyone's use case is going to be different. There are, again, like guides to set up to do that, but this is, I guess, the most annoying part of Qubes when I first started. Again, just me not reading the documentation that would have literally just fucking made it easier. It is a little tedious still, is copying stuff. Copying stuff is completely different. Their clipboard, if I could look for it, they have like they kind of have like a copy and paste. This is something that they put a lot of thought to. I actually like it too because it's from a security perspective. The inter-cube clipboard system is secure because it doesn't allow any cube other than your selected target to steal any contents from the inter-cube clipboard. They also have clipboard automatic policy enforcement, shortcut configuration, automatic clipboard wiping. By default, data paste in the cube will remain until something else or restarts the cube. It is possible to make the cube's GUI to process inside the cube wipe the clipboard automatically after a minute. You can just do that if you're very, very concerned about what you copy. The intranet, they have where you can transfer files from one cube to another. It's actually not even that really complex. It's just, I guess it's less convenient than just plugging in and just getting automatic access. But these extra clicks, I feel like, do not interrupt my day because I've gotten used to it. And I've tried to relatively make it very, very simple. Like what I put in on my system and like what I need to copy, what I don't need to copy, and what I need to sync and what I don't need to sync. All these things have just like kind of like worked. Like I don't really see the this is an advanced like distro. If you've never like, you can even run Windows in a virtual machine on this. I mean, they have guides. If you want to virtualize Windows and make it maybe relatively more secure, I mean, it's an option. This is just my perspective. I definitely think people should don't put this in a virtual machine and run it. And don't listen to the people that say you need 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 gigs of RAM. You don't. I ran QubesOs with 8. I was fine. I had to do that. Like I couldn't like open up like the amount of virtual machines. I only have 16 gigs right now too. I couldn't open up the amount of virtual machines that I need now. But Qubes' management system is very good. It's like it knows where to put the resources and how to do them. I like that. And half the time you don't need fucking 6 cubes open. Like really. Most I've ever had open at the same time is 2. Like my notes and this. On a multi-screen, it would be, if I could have like a multi-screen, it'd be better because, laptops are terrible they're like really not good for like multiple windows. It is XFCE. I don't really like the look, but it's whatever. Functionality, I guess, is more important. But that's just how I look at it. Go install it. Go back up your Windows. Go install it, and try it out. Test it out for like a week, a day, if you can. Because I think people are wrong on the fact that it's an advanced Linux distro, and you're a psycho, or like it's crazy. It's just virtual. It does all the virtualization for you. It's kind of nice. I mean, I'm used to running virtual machines anyways. I run a ton of virtual machines on my main rig for a lot of reasons. Just for mainly like organization wise, this should be like top. Like, oh man, everything's just completely organized. But I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you install QubesOs and fuck the haters.